Welcome to the Bare Metal Cyber Sea Risk Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Validating the execution of risk responses is the final but absolutely essential step in the risk treatment lifecycle. Creating a treatment plan is important. Implementing controls and executing risk response actions is important. But without confirmation that everything worked as intended and that risk was actually reduced, organizations may be left with a false sense of security. Validation ensures that intention matches execution and that the organization does not prematurely close risks that remain unresolved. Sea risk professionals lead this assurance process by helping track completion, evaluate results, document supporting evidence, and report status to governance teams. Risk mitigation without validation is guesswork. On the exam, if a scenario describes lowered residual risk scores without supporting documentation, the question is often signaling that validation was skipped. The strongest answers reinforce structured follow-up, clear accountability, and outcome-driven verification. In practical terms, validation means confirming that the actions in the risk treatment plan were actually carried out as agreed. This includes checking whether all steps were completed, whether controls were implemented in alignment with their intended design, whether the controls work as expected, and whether the updated risk level now falls within the organization's defined risk tolerance. Validation also requires documentation, not just that something was done, but that it was done correctly and with traceable evidence. Think of validation as a linear flow. Plan the response, take action, gather evidence of completion, and then verify both execution and impact. On the exam, when risk response activities are described as complete with no detail or supporting trail, the right answer usually points to a validation gap. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Several roles participate in the validation process, and each plays a unique part. Control owners are responsible for confirming that the operational steps of the control were followed and that the control is functioning. Risk owners validate that the treatment has addressed the intended risk and that residual exposure has changed. Risk management or internal audit teams may provide independent verification, especially in higher risk or regulated environments. Finally, governance bodies, such as risk committees or senior leadership, review reports, approve closure of treatment plans, or request further action if needed. On the exam, when a control fails or a risk remains untreated despite supposed mitigation, the root cause is often that no independent or structured validation occurred. Correct answers include multiple perspectives and formal review checkpoints. To confirm that controls and treatments were executed and that risk was reduced, sea risk professionals apply structured validation methods. This may include reviewing documentation such as implementation logs, approvals, change records, and control configuration settings. Interviews or confirmations with the control implementers or system owners help verify that the deployment occurred as described. Control testing is another core method, including both design effectiveness, does the control theoretically reduce the risk, and operating effectiveness, is the control functioning as intended in live environments. Risk scoring reassessments allow teams to confirm that the new residual score aligns with actual conditions and verified control performance. Many GRC systems offer built-in workflows for tracking treatment completion, flagging missing steps, and storing audit evidence. On the exam, if scoring or closure occurs without any of these steps, the most accurate answer will identify a validation oversight. The timing of validation activities matters, and sea risk professionals help establish both event-based and scheduled checkpoints. Validation should always occur after implementation, but before a treatment plan is formally closed. Scheduled validation may be performed at intervals such as 30, 60, or 90 days after treatment, depending on control complexity or risk criticality. Event-driven validation may be triggered by incidents, audit findings, or regulatory inquiry. Periodic validation may also be required for controls tied to critical systems, compliance mandates, or frequently changing environments. On the exam, when control failure or exposure reemerges after treatment was marked complete, the clue may be in poor timing or missed post-treatment validation. The correct answer will include defined validation windows and event-based reassessment protocols. There are several common validation gaps that C-risk professionals are trained to detect and correct. One of the most frequent is when treatment actions are marked complete without supporting evidence, no logs, no test results, no verification trail. Another is when a control is implemented but not tested, or when it is tested only once and never revalidated over time. A third gap appears when residual risk scores are updated, but there is no documentation of how the change was determined or what controls support it. Governance review and formal sign-off are often skipped in rushed environments. On the exam, clues like treatment status updated with no attached results or control was not verified after system change are classic signs that validation did not occur. The correct answer will almost always involve initiating structured verification steps before closing the risk. Validation outcomes must be documented in a format that is transparent, structured, and audit-ready. The outcome of each treatment plan should be labeled fully complete, partially complete, or failed. The results of control testing must be logged, along with any test results, system screenshots, configuration exports, or stakeholder sign-offs. The effect of the control on the residual risks should be stated clearly. Was the risk reduced? By how much? Does it now fall within tolerance? Documentation should be stored in the appropriate location, whether in the risk register, treatment tracking system, control library, or audit file. On the exam, when a question asks what's missing from a treatment record, the correct answer will likely involve missing test documentation, incomplete outcome description, or lack of evidence. Once validation is complete, risk and governance artifacts must be updated to reflect the current state. This includes updating the residual risk score in the risk register, adjusting treatment plan status, and confirming whether the risk remains open or can be marked as resolved. If the treatment failed to bring the risk within tolerance, then governance escalation is required and additional action must be planned. Closure of the treatment plan should only happen after full validation and governance approval. Outcomes should also be reported to internal audit, compliance teams, or leadership dashboards. This ensures that risk transparency is preserved and that governance bodies are equipped with the right information to make decisions. On the exam, if a plan was closed without full validation or if residual risk was updated without governance input, the issue is likely documentation or oversight failure. Every treatment validation exercise should include a feedback loop for continuous improvement. C-risk professionals help teams capture lessons learned during validation, such as delays in implementation, miscoordination, or testing limitations, and apply them to future treatment planning. These lessons are discussed in post-implementation reviews or risk committee meetings and may be used to revise playbooks, templates, or response frameworks. The goal is to improve the quality and effectiveness of risk response efforts over time, not just to check boxes. On the exam, if a question describes recurring control failures or repeated mitigation delays, the correct response will often involve a lesson learned analysis or framework refinement step. Strong answers include evidence-based feedback, process refinement, and documented insights for governance. C-risk exam questions related to validation typically test your understanding of closure discipline, verification, and residual risk justification. You might be asked what is missing from a treatment plan cycle, and the answer may be validation or outcome testing. You may be asked how to confirm that risk was mitigated, and the correct approach involves testing controls and updating risk scoring based on results. You could also be asked who approves treatment closure, and the answer involves both the risk owner and the governance body. Some scenarios will ask what happens after implementation, and the right step is to validate, document, and reassess the risk to ensure it aligns with organizational tolerance. The best exam answers reflect full follow-through, clear evidence, updated scoring, and governance visibility. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber C-Risk Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.